Hey everybody. So today we're going to be talking about solutions of inequalities. Now you might have seen this before, but for those of you who might need a little bit of a refresher, an inequality is a sort of math problem that shows between which two sides, which one is bigger. So the signs you're going to see here are this sign and that sign. So this one is called a greater than sign. And I'll explain more in depth what these mean. This is a less than sign. Now, there's another sign that you need to know that's not to be confused. It looks almost exactly the same except it has a little line on the bottom, a horizontal line on the bottom. Now, this is called greater than or equal to. And by the way, please have these in notes for class. I'm going to ask that you please write this down because you do need to know these names and be able to identify them. And then here we have less than or equal to. And what these signs are pretty much going to tell you is that either the left side of the problem or the right side of the problem is bigger. Now, the way that I think about it is if we just pretend that these are alligators, the alligator always wants to eat the bigger meal. So the open mouth, you can draw teeth. If you don't want to draw teeth, that's fine. I used to draw teeth just to kind of remind myself. Now, the alligator mouth, the teeth is always going to open up to the bigger side. So if you want to say that the left side's bigger, have the sign open up to the left. If you want to say the right side's bigger, then have the mouth open up to the right. Now, the difference between the less than and the less than or equal to, or the greater than and the greater than or equal to, oh, I forgot to draw the bottom line there. Yeah, so there should be a bottom line down here. There we go. The difference between this and the difference between this is that this means that it could equal the number. They could be the same. And I'll kind of give you an explanation for an example for each of these. So for example, if I said, let me corner this off so that we have a little bit more room. Awesome. So if I said, there will be more than 10 questions on the quiz. Okay. This is what I've told you. Now, in your head, you will say, okay, there are more than 10 questions on the quiz. So there might be 11, 12, 13, 14. There are so many numbers that are more than 10. So what we're going to do here is we're going to show this relationship as something called an inequality. Now, we don't know how many questions there are. So let me underline that for you. We don't know how many questions there are. So if we don't know the value of something, what are we going to put? We're going to put a variable. In this case, I'll put Q for questions. So the Q, there will be more than 10. So right now we're comparing the number of questions to 10. Right? It'll be more than 10, it'll be less than 10, it'll be 10. Either way, we're comparing the number of questions, our Q here, to the number 10. Now, the statement says there will be more than 10 questions. Okay, more than 10 questions. So that means that my little alligator here is going to be opening its mouth up to the left side, to the questions, because no matter what number is picked here, no matter how many questions I put on the test or on the quiz, it will always be more than 10. So just remember, that's how you're going to do it. And then the way you read it is Q is greater than, because of the greater than sign, 10. Q is greater than 10. Now, if we were to do the greater than or equal to, I might write something like this, or I might say something like this. There will be at least 10 questions on the quiz. Okay, so there are at least 10 questions on the quiz. So now you might be thinking, okay, instead of starting at 11, you'll be like, 10's a possibility. 10 could happen. Where this is happening where you are both comparing to 10 and 10 is a possible answer. So that's when you would use the greater than or equal to. You're pretty much saying, again, we don't know how many questions, so we're going to put Q. We're comparing to 10, but this time we're going to be using this sign because it's great. Q can be greater than 10. That's true. I could put 11 questions. I could put 12. I could put 13 questions. That would still fall under this, and I would still be telling the truth. I could also just straight up put 10. Q could equal 10. I put 10 questions, and you'd be like, yep, that makes sense. He said at least 10, so if 10's on there, yeah, that's fine. So that's the difference between this two. You're still comparing to the same numbers. The only difference is the number you're comparing to a possible answer, a possible thing that could happen. In the top one here, it couldn't happen because if I put 10, 10 is not more than 10. That's not true. So I can't put equal. However, if I said there will be at least 10, that means that 10 is a possible answer. So I'm going to put this line on the bottom. And the same thing goes for the other side, the less than. So for here, I might say, let's do purple, because why not? There will be less than 10 questions on the quiz. If I could just move that a little bit. Will you fit? No, you won't fit. Why? I trusted you. Okay, that's fine. All right, so there will be less than 10 questions on the quiz. That means you will probably be expecting 9 questions, 8 questions, 7 questions, 6, all the way down. So what we're saying here is that 10 is not possible. If I put 10 questions on the quiz and I said less than, I'm not telling the truth. So what I need to remember here is 1, what am I comparing? My Q, the number of questions, and 10. And the number of questions will always be less than 10. The alligator is facing towards the 10 because the 10 will always be bigger than this side. It does not matter what goes into here because no matter what number I put in here, as long as this is telling the truth, it won't be bigger than 10. And then if I wrote there will be at most 10 questions on the quiz. So at most 10, that means that if I put 10, yeah, I'm right up at the border. I'm right up at the top of what could possibly happen. So that means if I put 10 questions on the quiz and I said, hey, there will be at most 10 questions, you'd be like, okay, he did say that. He did say there would be at most 10. So 10 is a possible thing that could happen. So the number of questions could be less than 10. It could also be equal to 10. And that's when you would use each of these signs. Now, when you're doing this, you have to remember that the sign you use depends on what you're being told. You have to be able to interpret it and logically think out, okay, could my variable be equal to the number I'm comparing? Could my variable be less than? Could it be more than? If I pick a number from what I'm saying, will it still be true? For example, I'm saying Q can be less than or equal to 10. So numbers that are less than 10, I don't know, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Does that still make this true? Yes. If I wrote down 10, because says here it could be equal to 10, is that still true? Yes. So that means that this is correct. Now, this is just an overview of all the signs, all the symbols, and getting you, if you remember it, a little bit of review. We will be doing more problems with this, so don't freak out. So just have these in your notes. This whole thing right here, this will be really good for your notes because it'll let you know the differences between them. And it'll let you know when to use one and when to use the other, how to read it, what it's called. So that'd be good to have. Okay, let me zoom this out so that we don't run out of room. All right. We're going to be learning how to graph these, but first I kind of want to show you how to use them. So right here, let's look at a word problem that, here we go. Let's, do I want to use that? Yeah, let's do this one. So, Megan must run a mile in 6 minutes or less to beat her best time. All right, so let's write this down. Megan must run, that's not run a mile in 6 minutes or less to beat her best time. Okay, first of all, Megan is a much faster runner than me. I wish Megan would teach me how to run. Second, we need to figure out the two things that we're comparing. Okay, right now I see this number 6. So that's probably going to be on one side. And then must run a mile in 6 minutes or less. So it looks like we're talking about her time here, her minutes. We don't know how many minutes she's going to run. We just know that she has to do less than 6. Okay, let's see. So minutes, we don't know what it is. When we don't know what something is, we use a variable. Yeah. So I'm going to put M for minutes because I lack originality. And here we're going to put 6 because we're also comparing it to her 6-minute time. She must run in 6 minutes or less. Okay, so or less is pretty straightforward. That means that her number of minutes has to be less. But could we include 6? If she ran 6 minutes, based on this statement, would she still beat her best time? Yeah, 6 minutes would help her beat her best time because it says 6 minutes or less. It doesn't say it has to be less than 6 minutes. It can be 6 minutes or less. So that means that 6 is a possible answer here. This is saying, wait a minute, why did I put this one? For those of you who might be confused, good for you. You caught a mistake that I didn't. There we go. Or less. So that means that M is less than or equal to 6. So all this less than here could be 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, speed lightning, 0 minutes. I don't know. Maybe she's the Flash. And that would be okay. She could also do 6 minutes, which would be also okay. So that's how we would do that. Now, it also says here to graph the inequality. I'm going to quickly go over how to graph it. It just requires a pretty strong understanding of the number line and a little bit of memorization. So I'm going to group up the symbols again. So here, let's use this. So okay. So what we need to know here is, what are we graphing? What is this graph supposed to represent? Well, this graph is supposed to represent all the possible answers that M could be. That's what you're showing here. You're trying to show, hey, on this number line, everything that I'm putting an arrow in, everything I'm drawing a line to, is a possible answer. Well, that means that we have to have our starting point. Our starting point here is 6. Everything we do here is going to be based off 6. Our M, our number of minutes, is compared to 6. So everything is going to be in relation to 6. So I'm going to put a little marker here, a little circle, to tell me, okay, this is my starting point. I might not include this starting point, but this is where I'm starting. So the first step, step 1, so graphing inequalities, step 1 is draw a circle above your starting point. Now, your starting point will always be the number that you're comparing to. So this thing right here, it might be on the left, it might be on the right, it really doesn't matter. Because I could also write this like this. I could have done this. The same thing, just reverse. 6 is greater than or equal to m. This is also an okay answer. Whether it's going this way or that way, it's the same. But in both times, the open side is going to the 6. So they're pretty much just telling me the same thing. So your starting point will always just be the number. Not the left side, not the right side, the number that you're comparing to. Okay, next, step 2. No, not what I wanted. Stop it. Step... Where is it? What was I using? This one? No. Oh well, good enough. Step 2. Fill in the circle if you are including the starting point. Leave empty if you are not. Okay. So pretty much what this means is if you're going to include the starting point as a possible answer, fill it in. Fill in the circle. If you're not going to include it as a possible answer, don't fill it in. So that pretty much just means all these signs here with the equal sign, where yes, the comparing number is a possible answer, you're going to have to fill it in. If you don't see the equal sign, you're going to leave it empty. Simple as that. You see the equal sign on the bottom, fill it in. You don't see it, leave it empty. So in this case, we have that equal sign because 6 is a possible answer. So I'm going to fill that in. And then, step 3. Draw an arrow. That's 3 R's. Starting from the starting point, obviously, towards the possible answers. Okay. So here, we're going to draw it. We are going to go either left or right. So let's think about it. If she has to run less than 6 minutes, less than 6, is that going left on the number line or is that going right on the number line? You're going left on the number line. So it's going to look a little bit like this. Now you might think, wait, what about 0 and past 0? We will get to that in a higher level math. For now, just worry about the basics. We're worried about your foundation right now. Yes, you are right. Technically, we should also stop at 0 because there's no such thing as a -2 time. It just doesn't happen. But for now, don't worry about it. Worry about being able to graph. Then we'll get into the technical stuff later, like those really specific things. We'll talk about it later. For now, focus on your foundations. Your foundations is very important. Everything is building off of this. So don't jump ahead. Don't try to do things that are too far ahead and risk confusing yourself. Just focus on this. And that's how you graph. So 1, draw your circle from your starting point. Your starting point is your number. Fill in your circle if you're including the starting point. Leave it empty if you're not. So again, if you have the equal signs, fill it in. No equal signs, empty it out. Draw an arrow from the starting point towards, pointing towards the possible answers. So the possible answers are all less than 6, so we're going to go left. And that's that. We'll do another one. So, again, let's see what we got here. So, the temperature today will rise above 2, I don't know how to do that little circle thing, Fahrenheit. I'm just gonna just pretend it's there. Yeah. Just gotta use your imagination. There we go, good enough. So, again, the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to figure out the 2 things that we're comparing. Well, it looks like the temperature today will rise above 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So this 2 degrees, something's going to go above 2 degrees. So that means that 2 is one of our comparing things. And the temperature will rise. So it looks like the temperature is going to go above 2. These are our two things that we are comparing. Now, it doesn't matter which one you put on the right and which one you put on the left. They're both correct. It's just a matter of what you want to, how you want to write it. The only thing that you have to remember is that the teeth, the open side is always going to go to the bigger side. So you have to remain consistent. So temperature will rise above 2 degrees. So that means that the temperature is going to be bigger than 2 degrees. So my T here is going to be my bigger side. These are both correct. It doesn't matter which one you choose. Up to you. Now, is 2 possible? A possible answer, rise above 2 degrees Fahrenheit? No. It's not a possible answer because it only says it's going to be above. It doesn't say that 2, maybe at least 2, starting at 2. No, it's just above 2. It's going to be bigger than 2. So no equal sign here. Just the regular old inequality signs without the equal sign. Now, we need to graph it. So again, we're going to create our number line. We're going to draw a circle above my starting point. So my starting point here is 2. So I'm going to do 2. And then draw a circle above it. Now, fill it in if you're including the starting point. Leave it empty if you're not. I'm not going to include the starting point because 2 is not a possible answer. So I'm going to leave that empty. Draw an arrow from the starting point towards the possible answers. Okay, so if the temperature is going to be bigger than 2, all the numbers that are bigger than 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, those are all to the right of 2. So I'm just going to draw my arrow there. And now I'm done. So this requires a lot more interpretation of the word problem. You're going to need you to use your logic skills. You're going to need to figure out, okay, what am I comparing? Which is bigger? And then I'm going to graph it. Let's see. Let's try one more. Oh, I gotta make it longer. Okay. Cool. Except for you. I'm going to bring you down because you are helpful. You should have these in your notes in case you need it. Cool. So here, this example is telling me there are at least 5 gallons of water in an aquarium. Cool. So let's figure out what we're comparing first. Okay, so we're going to be comparing there are at least 5 gallons of water in an aquarium. So there are at least 5. So looks like 5 is our one of the things we're comparing, and we're talking about the gallons of water. We're looking at the gallons of water. We don't know how many gallons of water there are, but it is the most important part of this statement. We're talking about the gallons of water in an aquarium. So I'm going to put G for gallons and 5 for the number that we're comparing it to. Again, you can flip them. It's fine. And now we're going to say, okay, there are at least 5 gallons. At least 5. So 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are all within the possibilities. So looks like I'm going to go this way. Looks like the gallons can be bigger than 5. Because if I say 6, if I say 7, if I say 8, those would still fall under this. Those are at least 5 gallons. Can it equal 5? Yeah. 5 is at least 5. So I put an equal sign there. Then I take my number line, and then I take my starting point. I draw a circle, so my starting point here is 5. Fill in the circle if you're including, empty if you're not. So there's an equal sign here. That means that 5 is something that could possibly happen, so I'm going to fill that in. And then I want all the numbers bigger than 5, so 6, 7, 8, 9. That's on this side. So I'm going to draw an arrow tilting that side. And that's it. As you can see, it's pretty much the same things happening over and over and over again. As long as you follow these steps, you'll be fine. So good luck, and I'll see you Tuesday.